All right, this is awesome, isn't it? I love it here at Future Proof. I want to thank Matt Middleton, Josh Brown, everyone at the Future Proof for inviting me to moderate this panel on how AI is transforming wealth management. And as you heard, we've got two great speakers, so we're just going to dive right in. And one thing we've seen, I know in my company, you've probably seen it all as well, the rate of change in technology has never been as slow as it is today. It's going to be faster and faster. It's going to keep speeding up. And it seems that AI is speeding up faster all the time. A recent study by Standard & Poor's found that in the last 2 years alone, generative AI adoption has eclipsed all other AI applications at enterprise firms. And they've seen a direct correlation that companies with a higher degree of AI maturity have increased revenue, better operating efficiencies, and faster time to market for product innovation. So let me throw the first question over to James. Generative AI has already changed the way many of us work. How will it change the way wealth management firms operate, and how can advisors leverage it to enhance their client service?
Well, great to be here, everybody. I really appreciate the Future Proof inviting me. So, I mean, when you look at wealth management, there's 5 ways that we're seeing at Google how wealth management firms are really taking advantage today and will continue to take advantage of generative AI. First, you think about something like operational efficiencies. Just think of day-to-day work you're doing, report generation, and things of that nature. And ultimately, actually, Google's going off in my hand here. Pretty funny. She's listening to me as well. Sorry.
If only the tech worked better.
That was literally Google answering the same question that I was just asked. Pretty funny on my phone. I'm completely wired on this. But operational efficiencies, kind of report generation, day-to-day type tasks that you'll work in, and we'll talk a bit about more of that when we get into individual use cases. Client experiences will really improve significantly. Think about everything from creating investment proposals, portfolio optimization, and just providing your customers ideas and research based on what's going on in the market. Gen AI can help a lot on that. Think about client onboarding. I work with a major wealth management firm, and when they work with a customer initially, they have a 13-page review that they go through on everything about the customer, their life, their goal, their risks, and everything, and they take it all down, they send it back, a junior analyst fills it all out, they have a reporting structure. Gen AI can actually handle all of that in seconds and things that take days on that front. Think about operational risk and how ultimately you want to make sure that your combination, that your wealth management firm is in compliance with regulations, and from a risk perspective, from your client's perspective, in terms of making sure that their portfolios are aligned in ways that you ultimately have agreed to. You can use Gen AI very successfully. And then you think about marketing. Whatever type of lead gen or marketing efforts that you create, whether it's passive, whether it's active, Gen AI is obviously world-class at creating different types of content. And if you're not using Gen AI in each of those areas, you just simply will be. There's no fighting it. It's just here to make your life easier. It makes things faster. It makes you look more intelligent. And wealth management firms are really, certainly the big ones, are really starting to lean in on a number of those different areas.
Hey, James, I'm going to switch up the order of the questions a bit. I'm going to save the financial planning for later. Let me jump over to Devon. A recent article published by VC firm A16Z predicted that legacy CRM platforms and other sales tools will be disrupted by AI's ability to combine data from multiple sources across multiple modes. Your product, AssetLink, seems to be designed to do just that. Could you describe the capabilities and value proposition of AssetLink and how it can unify siloed data sources?
Well, I appreciate the question. I have a question for the audience. How many of you spend, let's say, 10 minutes per meeting on average in your CRM system doing meeting prep? By raise of hands. So that's most folks, right? So, because the CRM is a container, right, that contains textual data. If you start looking at what the future looks like, it has to be multimodal. You're going to need to be able to talk to it in order to retrieve information. It's going to need to be able to accept pictures and videos. So when we start talking about multimodal, then where it comes to is the unification of data. So as an example, with partners like Google, we're able to unify a firm's data so it all talks to each other, right? How many times do you have multiple tabs open? You're going from this tab to your Salesforce, to your Tableau, to your Seismic, right? You're all over the place, taking away valuable time that you could be in front of your clients with. So the future, what that looks like, is being able to unify your own data, because it needs to live on a source of truth, being able to retrieve data from what you've put into your own system so that you have it at the ready. So, Andreessen Horowitz is exactly accurate, right? There's going to be a fundamental shift in how these containerized CRM systems have to utilize it, right? And that's why we have AssetLink. And that's why firms like Salesforce and HubSpot and Dynamics are all making investments into firms that can get them there.
Another part of CRM and part of sales that we don't see a lot in wealth management and asset management is sales enablement. And it's sort of relatively new. Do you have any insights that AI-powered platforms can deliver to help advisors increase closing rates for prospects?
Yeah, so what it comes back to from my thought process and what we're seeing is next best action. That is a buzzword where a lot of industry folks throw around that jargon, but really being able to trigger based off of how you operate. Because this happens, this needs to happen, right? And it starts with your data. So next best action is probably one of the most tangible evidence of AI for how financial advisors could be that much more efficient in client relationship intelligence. When you go into a meeting, you can't just have a part of the story. So AI being able to retrieve every single thing about a client or prospective client, whether it's through web scraping or whether that is through just unifying sources that you might know, even tax records and in public filings, being able to take all of that together helps you as the advisor have a broader lens and a more granular picture of who you're talking to.
Thanks, Devon. Let's jump into some specific advisor use cases. Over to James. Can you share a few targeted use cases where AI can benefit advisors in their day-to-day work, maybe eliminating admin tasks to free them up for more strategic thinking?
Yeah, so, I mean, just think about, let's go to the more mundane or administrative things that you do. You know, whether it's client emails or some type of communications, it's so easy to use generative AI to actually provide some basic instruction, and it will write those drafts for you, and it will just save you so much time. You become kind of the editor as opposed to the writer. So you think about any kind of client communication, whether it's initial note about something in their portfolio, if it's some type of thing on a follow-up meeting, those all of those communications can be automated with Gen AI, and you're kind of doing it in real time. So don't think about it as, well, we have to systematically set it up. That could be possible in certain cases, especially when you get into marketing type of content creation. But just your day-to-day communications, that can be really, really effective. Think about when you get into financial planning, you know, investment proposals that you want to create. If you haven't done it, just try it. Just try it for kicks. It will shock you how good Gen AI is to create a proposal by taking the client's risk, whatever type of risk information you have, the investment ideas, their financial goals, and with instruction on what you're thinking on what needs to be created in that proposal. And Gen AI will take the content you've given it, and it will generate a pretty incredible draft. And so anything with that type of content generation will be terrific. And then think of things like on your daily basis of learning about what's going on in the market. You might have your go-to, maybe you listen to a 30-minute vlog or blog, read a blog every day. Imagine running that video or that MP3 or that article through, maybe there's multiple things, running it through Gen AI, and it will take that video, it will take that text, and it will actually summarize it nice and neatly, because you just simply can't read everything that you want to on a daily basis. It's not possible. And Gen AI really kind of keeps you intelligent without having to kind of consume all of your time. And then think about finally when you're looking at kind of research, what's going on in the market, you know, the economists that you follow, the analysts that you follow, ultimately being able to synthesize that information, analyze it, and use Gen AI to come up with the key points so that you have all the necessary tidbits to run your day by day. Those are your kind of day-to-day workflow type examples that could really save you a lot of time, give you more time to focus on client relationships, and ultimately help you do a better job.
Quick audience poll. By a show of hands, how many people here have used generative AI in their day-to-day work? Check it out, check it out.
Well, can I ask one extra poll on that? How many of those have used Gemini from Google? If you haven't, raise your hand and lie. Get Gemini on your phone as quick as possible. That ChatGPT stuff just no good.
I've used it. It is pretty good. There was one thing you can do in Gemini you can't do in other apps, which is summarize a YouTube video. I found it to be really helpful for things maybe I don't have time to watch the whole video. I want to maybe talk about it. It can summarize the whole video for you, and it's very accurate.
Yeah. I mean, one of the kind of Star Trek parts of Gemini that's the most recent kind of technology. I mean, it's all kind of amazing, but the ability. Think of a couple things that we can do with video today. I could take a 30-minute video, a 2-hour video, and in 10 to 60 seconds, depending on how long that video is, I can ask things like summarize it, give me the key questions, the key quotes, if there was any debate of different opinion. All of that can be done in seconds. Matter of fact, what we're coming at the end of the year is we'll flip the script, and we'll take text to generate video. So now we can generate video right from the text. We actually have all that in prototype. So really extraordinary. So I do it all the time with YouTube videos, from CNBC, from economists, from analysts that I follow. Some of them are going to be here this week. And I look like I listen to all their stuff, but I really use Gen AI to summarize it all.
Devon, do you have a follow-up to that?
Yeah, so full disclosure, we're a Google accelerator company, so I second that with Google 1.5 Turbo being far superior than some of the other, from a, I guess, unbiased opinion. So
this is not a Google advertisement. Large language models are the engines that drive generative AI tools, but not all LLMs are created equal. Different models have been built by Google, OpenAI, Meta, Anthropic, Databricks, Microsoft, and X, formerly known as Twitter, to name a few. AssetLink, Devon, is using a slightly different form of an LLM called a BERT, which is a bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. That's a mouthful. Without getting too far into the weeds, can you explain how a BERT is different from LLM and how it can improve the answers provided to complex questions?
Yeah, thank you. And not to make it sound like really a Google commercial, but yeah, so when Google came out with their BERT product in 2018, it was revolutionary. Right. So now when we're utilizing it, it's a little more cost effective than the newer LLM models that are coming out. But the big bet that we've made at AssetLink is using RAG, right? RAG and GAN, so retrieval augmented generation, to people fine tune those large language models, right? Because the last thing we want is hallucination. But then hallucination goes off of your data sets, right? So it's garbage in, garbage out. So being able to have RAG on top of that makes sure that the hallucination is as low as possible.
And Devon, let me expand on that for those that don't know, and I won't even define RAG for you. But ultimately, think of this way. Think of any corpus of data that you utilize, from web information, a website, any of your documents, any kind of database information. And what RAG ultimately allows you to do is you apply Gen AI to all of that information that you've isolated, and you can ask any question or query on the information. So you've eliminated, things about errors and hallucinations because you've locked it down to only those data sources, but you're letting Gen AI synthesize it, index it, summarize it, analyze it for you, but it's not going out into some crazy place to make up the information. And then finally, it provides you citations. So it will always tell you where the information came from. So you get that explainability, and that gives you the confidence to be able to take advantage of that. And all of that's available at your fingertips if you don't know it or not.
Switching over to some of the risks from AI. Speaking of Google, Google's lead privacy regulator in the EU has opened an investigation into whether it has complied with their data protection laws in relation to use of people's information for training generative AI. Now, I'm not just picking on Google just because you're here, but every AI vendor is going to have this same issue. They're going to run to regulatory scrutiny about privacy. So James, as AI continues to evolve, how do you see regulations and compliance considerations? Now, we talked a little bit about it in your first question, but can you expand on that, how it's going to impact the implementation of AI in wealth management?
So there's a couple things that give customers a lot of confidence to take advantage of this. The first thing is, these LLMs from Google and others include incredible amounts of information. And so the first thing that customers have worried about in the early days is, hey, am I going to get sued using that information? You might generate great content, but you're using data to do that, and is that going to get me in trouble? And the answer is that Google only uses public information, and most firms are getting with it, and some firms have to contract with customers to do it. And there's been, like, for example, the New York Times was suing one of our competitors for using their data before. And so that, I think the market's moving past all that. The other thing is the output, right? You're generating all this output, this content. Do you own it? Does Google own it? Who owns it? Well, you always own it, and Google, and that makes it great, makes it very, very easy for you. Now, when you go into more compliance issues like transparency and explainability, as I mentioned earlier, we're making sure that the results you're getting can be verified, that you know where the source information came from, so that you always have confidence that that information is correct and hasn't been hallucinated. Then, of course, we have to look at things like regulations, right? Google has to build all of this technology in what we call responsible AI, where we have to look at regulations and make sure that we're in compliance. Now, federally, there's not much regulations going on in AI yet. State-wise, like here in California, they're doing, they're as usual proactive as ever with regulations. And they're putting all sorts of protections in place to make sure that if AI is used, it's disclosed. If AI is used, that actually that there's an attestation that the information is looked at and explainable and correct. And so lots of laws are coming out, and that's an ongoing situation. But ultimately, Google is very conservative in its approach to making sure that everything we generate reaches a compliance effort, meets regulatory roles, and then finally is safe, right? Think about violence or sexual language or any type of volatile type information. We're applying restrictions, and the restrictions even apply to the most simple thing. If you say, hey, is Apple a good investment? Generative AI and Gemini will answer that. It won't. It will say, well, let me tell you what I know about it. And we'll go tell you what analysts say. It will tell you about its valuation. It will tell you about its risks. But then so it will give you all the information you need to make a decision. But what you're really asking is, hey, should I buy Apple stock? Gemini will not answer that question. So it won't go that far. It will block that. So it will provide the kind of positive and negatives, but it will never tell anybody what to do. And finally, we'll always say, go reach out to your financial advisor for more information.
And you can find them at Futureproof.
What's that?
And you can find them at Futureproof.
That's right.
Devon, your application gathers a tremendous amount of data, provides some tremendous insights. Do you have any compliance or regulatory issues around that?
Yeah, so every time we're doing vendor diligence or supplier diligence, it's always the same set of questions, right? However, what's now happening is that most firms are now having AI councils, right, to be able to go checks and balances. Now the SEC is saying, well, if you're using any type of models, any type of AI, you have to disclose that on a quarterly basis. So yeah, we have that every single client we onboard, we have to go through that strict due diligence process and make sure the models that we're using isn't just a black box going to Never Land, right? Is actually based on some sort of truth.
Speaking of due diligence, let's talk about investment due diligence. According to a recent survey, advisors spend 37% of their time on investment-related activities, but only 10% on investment due diligence. This could be due to the friction involved in evaluating all the different offerings from asset management firms. So how can AI help reduce the amount of time required for advisors to perform robust investment due diligence?
Yeah, so that's actually a fun topic, right? And
these are all fun topics.
So you start talking about investment diligence, right? So for AI, it's an aggregation thing. So creating underlying models so that you could actually aggregate your preferences and your parameters. As an example, just being able to go to go to a model and say, hey, I'm looking for a top quartile large cap growth strategy that a portfolio manager's been in place for 15 years, top quartile performer that avoids sin stocks, right? And then being able to read all of the fact sheets that you have available to you on your approved list to then just curate the type of investment solutions based off of what you want and how you want it. That's saving you time, that's saving you money, and that's damn sure saving you headcount.
And you feed in the personal stuff that you know about the customer around that, right? So you're looking for a specific type of fund. You know the customer's risk tolerances. You know their interests, and the more instruction you give it, the more it will actually curate to the right fund for the right reason based on what you're looking for. And so all those things you should be using Gen AI for, because it's just going to save you so much time in doing that. And It's just, and ultimately it will give you the choices you're looking for so that you could ultimately be in control and take advantage of that data faster.
One more follow-up for Devon. So your application, I saw a demo of it. It was really cool. You have a chatbot interface where it can query the data you've gathered from my sources. Do you see that as something that every app will soon have? And will that change the way we interact with software?
It has to change the way we all do business. As an example, not to scare anyone, we're about 2 years away at AssetLink for the first autonomous investment sales professional, right? And it's going to be able to query based off of decades, centuries worth of data, based off of all the preferences, all the parameters, all the end clients, because firms like Meta, right, is using all of your public posts to train its models, right? So it's like this industry is never going to be a fast follow because of all the regulations, but it's happening now, right? And you want to paint a rosy picture, right, about adoption, but for us creating this autonomous agent, it's going to be able to work with you, but it needs to be having the type of prompts that allows you to be super hyper focused on what you're doing and what you love to do.
And I just want to add to that in the context that using Gen AI for robo-advisor type of technology, it's ready today and it's fantastic. But it's how you use it. It's not, to me, at scale, truly useful to the mass consumer and customer base. What it is truly useful to is you to use it for the benefit of working with the client base. So I think the maturity of robo-advisors and using generative AI for investment ideas and proposals and portfolio optimization, it is ready today. But I think it's the kind of thing that for years to come, it's going to be used very successfully by financial advisors, by RIAs, by investment managers. And only a minority of customers are really going to delve into that directly because they're still going to want your oversight and your relationship building to do all that.
I have a couple more questions, but before we do, I want to throw it to the stage manager. Can we get some Q&A from the audience? Do we have anything queued up? Anybody? Any QA, audience QA? Is it coming up on the screen? No? I said we would see some questions if we had any. All right, well, let's keep going then. All right, so both Google and Microsoft.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, oh, sorry. Oh, man. Okay, so questions from the audience. Anonymous. What measures will be in place to ensure ethical decision-making and accountability as AI takes a more prominent role in financial advising? Who wants that question?
So I think it's about explainability and transparency, right? It's being able to get the results you're looking for, but know where the data came from, know where the citation comes, down to the document, down to the paragraph, down to the sentence, so that you can always verify it. And I think that kind of puts you in a great position to have accountability in financial advising, because you end up being the ultimate end source to make sure that the information is correct, rather than just relying on it. But you do have that backup already with Gen AI.
Okay, next question. With so much data being generated, will we get to a point where everything just becomes AI-generated noise going in and AI-generated summaries coming out?
I think you're starting to see that now, right? So we'll get to the point where, AI is just part of what we do, right? So it's not like it's AI-generated noise in and AI-generated noise out, right? It's going to be, like James mentioned, you are going to be the editor of it as opposed to the writer, right? And that's really the power of Gen AI, right? Being able to save you the countless hours to be able to edit it to your liking, right? So I view it as it's going to be kind of a have to have, and then you being the editor to it.
And I want to add that, I don't look at it as noise at all. Think about, Google. At Google, we're pretty good at search, right? It's a rumor out there. And everybody relies on search for so many things professionally and personally. If you've noticed in those searches, now there's a Gen AI component answering questions, not just providing you the search rank order results. So it's already becoming reliable. It's already being figured into your DNA. And in fact, it's not noise, it's just better intel. It's getting you more acute answers to what you're looking for. Sure, there can be noise, but you know where the noise is generated? It's based on the questions. So Gen AI, is to some extent only as good as the input you give it, the instruction you give it, the tasks that you want it to do. And the better you are at asking, the better answers you get. So you're going to learn that there's this balance. It's not just a universal thing about noise or not noise on the output of Gen AI. It's about how good you are at really taking advantage of it at the input to get those results you're looking for.
I have a question for the audience. How many people have started the journey of unifying your own data, first to be kind of, let's call it machine readable, then to be AI readable? And when I mention that, like, how many people have, all of their, PDFs and fact sheets and CSVs all in a place where it could be converted into, let's call it a vector embedding, right? So that's the path to getting AI ready. Now, this is probably more of an enterprise level question, but I'd be curious from an individual standpoint, how many people have started the journey of data unification?
I'm guessing it's low. Yeah, just a couple hands.
Yeah, just a couple hands. Yeah.
When you said vector, you lost everybody.
Right, just lost everybody, right? Yeah, I got you, yeah.
Well,
Only us comp sci majors.
you could think of it this way, first and foremost, through all this, you're trying to keep your data quite secure, right? And so using things like cloud services where all your data is encrypted very safely, that's part of that unification, right? You throw all your documents, all your data, it's sitting in some storage facility for that information. And if you're using cloud services, for example, your data is protected. You actually are on your way for data unification, whether that was your initial intention or not.
Okay, I got one last question from the audience. We're almost out of time. So I think this is for Devon. How will smaller or more esoteric investments make their way into these AI algorithms?
Right, so if you talk about it from let's call it a home office perspective, right? So if you as an advisor, if you're able to essentially put all of your approved investment offerings all within a cloud provider, let's call it GCP.
Call it that.
then you'd be able to search and query it. Now, as far as the differentiated esoteric investment solutions, right? What you'd be able to do is partner with whether it's folks like the iCapital of the world, different let's call it different marketplaces to be able to take and export that to that cloud to be able to query it, right? And then based off of that, you'd be able to say, hey, I'm looking for an emerging manager that is a mid-market private credit fund. What do you have, right? But it takes that first point, which is work that you have to do on your end, to be able to upload that to some sort of cloud service.
I do want to answer one of the last questions there, if I can.
You got 30 seconds.
Anonymous.
When will AI be in my Google Home is one of the questions. So one of the things I just want to give you a heads up on, right? So we're all a little critical of things like Siri, Google Assistant, Alexa. They're pretty good, but the more you use them, the more critical you are. Google is about to move its AI assistant technology to Gemini. So it is advanced, so the technology continues to evolve, and generative AI is going to that, and I'm sure it's the same with Apple and Amazon.
You heard it here first, folks. Thanks again for being here. We're out of time. Give it a big round of applause to our panelists,
everybody.
Javon and James.
Thank you.